welcome our guests, Rob and Rob, and we look forward to your presentations. And we have quite an aggressive agenda here today to try to get through the witnesses and then clause by clause. So I've suggested to the witnesses that if the shorter their presentation, the more questions we have to ask. I have another question. I'm seeking unanimous consent to see if we can just go to one round of questions. Does everybody agree to that in the interest of getting through this issue? All in favor? Do I have unanimous consent to go for one round of questions? Okay, one round of questions it is. We'll have one round of 7-minute questions, but we start with one of the witnesses. I'm not sure which one. The Honourable Rob Nicholson.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee. It's an honor to be here today presenting my private member's bill along with my fellow colleague, the member for Don Valley West, Mr. Rob Oliphant. Bill C-233 is an act respecting a national strategy for Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. This bill calls upon parliamentarians to enact legislation for a national coordinated strategy for what has been termed Canada's invisible killer. Alzheimer's and dementia are major health problems that transcend partisanship and are affecting a staggering amount of Canadians currently, and I believe you heard this, 747,000 Canadians currently suffer from Alzheimer's, and ever more concerning is the fact that this is expected to double in the next 20 years. This is why I believe Canada needs to have a plan. I'm certain Mr. Oliphant will touch upon his experiences with Alzheimer's and dementia when he speaks, so I would like to take a moment to note the work on this topic by a former Member of Parliament, Claude Gravel. It's most heartening to know that in matters of concern to Canadians and our families that MPs can work together across party lines to unite and advocate for research, collaboration and partnership to find cures, timely diagnoses, and other support for treatment. This cooperation will lead to positive outcomes for Canadians who suffer from Alzheimer's and dementia, and will reassure that the loved ones of people who are suffering from this will have the proper care. Canadians expect that their parliamentarians will work on their behalf to resolve these critical issues. The impact on families and loved ones suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia is extensive. 3 out of 4 Canadians know someone living with dementia. I can't tell you how many people have approached me over the last couple of months to tell me the stories that they have experienced within their family. This not only takes an emotional, psychological, and physical toll on those who are providing support for loved ones, but it also has a severe financial effect. 2011, caregivers spent 444 million hours, representing $11 billion in lost income and about 230,000 full-time jobs. By 2040, caretakers will be providing 1.2 billion hours of care at over 2.5 times the numbers of hours that they provide today. Alzheimer's and dementia are no respecters of people, as it robs them of their dignity, independence, memory, and time. It knows no bounds and is not restricted to social or economic factors. No one is immune to these terrible diseases and the suffering that follows. It brings to mind the late United States President Ronald Reagan, the former leader of one of the most powerful and wealthy nations on earth, could not be safeguarded from the ravages of Alzheimer's. On November 5th, 1994, I remember him as the 40th President of the United States addressing the American people by writing in part, "Now I begin the journey that will lead me into the sunset of my life," end of quote. That journey took 10 slow and painful years. His loving wife Nancy referred to it as the long goodbye. Far too many Canadians endure the long goodbye. My own father, who I cherished, passed away from complications due to Alzheimer's, and I'm joined by many who have dealt with or are dealing with a loved one suffering from one of the various forms of Alzheimer's and dementia. And again, we know that this is going to increase. The bill that I have before you, first of all, proposes to establish a roundtable to receive the input from all Canadians. It would develop a national strategy while ensuring the autonomy of the provinces remain intact. Secondly, It would encourage greater investment in all areas related to Alzheimer's and dementia, in addition to coordinating with international bodies to fight against the disease. Third, it would seek the assistance of the provinces in developing and disseminating diagnostic and treatment guidelines based on new research. All of these measures have been thoroughly considered to ensure the successful passage of this legislation. Importantly, please note that this bill does not restrict timelines or financial criteria. This was a deliberate intention to remove potential barriers such as the need for a royal recommendation. Simply put, this bill is crafted for implementation, achievement of deliverables, and ultimately resilience at third reading. The objective is to enact legislation that will provide solutions to assist those who suffer from Alzheimer's and dementia and to aid family members and caretakers. The World Dementia Council, it was created by the G8 in 2013. This is a global coordinating body movement against Alzheimer's and other dementias, and it's trying to harmonize those efforts and bring together global know-how. So Canada, along with its G8 partners, had convened a meeting in London, England in December 2013, and the sole purpose of that meeting was to provide a structure for a worldwide response to this crisis. It was the first time the G8 countries gathered together to address a healthcare issue. It's clear that Canada has already agreed to work with our partners to address Alzheimer's, and in order to fulfill this mandate, we have to develop similar programs here at home. Bill C-233 would help achieve this outcome through the national strategy. I would reiterate that C-233 would respect healthcare accountability of each province, and I was very careful in the drafting of this to ensure that it does not require a royal recommendation. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank the Alzheimer's Society of Canada for their unwavering support of this bill. Their mandate and the objective of this bill closely align in support of one another. The Alzheimer's Society stated that it was pleased to see political parties working together to address dementia. It urged all members of Parliament to get behind this bill, suggesting a national strategy focusing on research, prevention, and improved care is the only solution to tackling the impact of this disease. Support for this bill, I believe, is the right thing to do. Alzheimer's and other dementias are major health issues that impact hundreds of thousands of Canadians, and it is a problem that is growing every day. Canada needs a strategy now so Canadians can be prepared to take on this health crisis in the future. Thank you for your support, and I'd like to now turn it over to my colleague, Robert Oliphant.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Oliphant.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members. I'm hoping that you experience today, as well as see what I believe is the best way that legislation should be both crafted and taken through the House of Commons in this collaborative effort. I want to thank my colleague. And it's kind of one of those things about this new Parliament where I think that there should be and is gradually starting to be a collaborative way of working together. And so working with the member for Niagara Falls, Mr. Nicholson, has been a great treat. Senior member, former minister who knows the way things actually work and makes me look good. So I want to thank him.
Make sure that's part of the record. Okay?
You as the members of this committee have the chance to do the same thing as we are modeling for you today, is to work collaboratively to get a bill passed that has its roots in the New Democratic Party with Mr. Gravel and is continuing now with the other two parties in the House. And I think this committee has a chance to actually make history by having the first national disease strategy adopted by Parliament, that we are not unaware that it could become a model for other diseases, and that there is a hunger for the federal government to play a leadership role, not encroaching upon any provincial powers to actually do the delivery of health care, but to provide an operation of collaboration and cooperation and best practices. I want to really begin by telling you the story of Ewart Angus. Ewart Angus was a member of the church that I was a minister for many years in Toronto. Ewart died, however, before I became the minister, and he left a sizable amount of money to the United Church of Canada. However, the United Church of Canada sort of lost track of that money and allowed it to grow over many years. And I discovered it in the late 1990s. It had reached $5 million, and it was earmarked for seniors' care in North Toronto. And nobody knew what to do with it. I did. And Ewart had been a member of our congregation, and we asked for the money to be transferred to that congregation to enact its vision of providing care for people with Alzheimer's and other dementias. We built Ewart Angus Homes on Merton Street in Toronto, really an amazing model for Alzheimer's care. What it does is it has 3 floors of market and subsidized rent apartments geared towards seniors, and then 2 floors of Alzheimer's care, meaning that if a couple, one of the members of the couple has dementia, that they can stay in their home while their spouse goes to a floor with secure and good medical care, which was originally for early Alzheimer's, mild stage, but is now progressed through to a medium and even a more advanced stage Alzheimer's. Being good fiscal conservatives, as I am sometimes, we actually ended up with $2 million left over at the end of that project after having built that building. So we built another one called Cedarhurst, which is in Don Valley West, coincidentally, and it provides another setting of 26 beds, 26 rooms for residential care, long-term care for people living with dementia. What it does is it's based on a model that we as a congregation discovered in Australia that Dr. Booth had developed, John Booth, where there was a relational care, small groups of people living with dementia, 5 at a time with 1 personal support worker, living in a residential setting and gradually developing a community that would honor the person. It continues to this day. I was at Ewart Angus Homes at Cedarhurst, the second campus, last week, and they are continuing to evolve and develop. The reason we need a national strategy is because that model of care is unfortunately almost unique in Canada in purpose-built, intentional housing for people with dementia and long-term care. It links with Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre, with the University of Waterloo, and a variety of satellites. However, it's quite limited. What Mr. Nicholson's bill does is offers the possibility of taking best practices in a place like Ewart Angus and spreading it across the country. And it does that by capturing the attention of the Minister of Health, requiring her or him in the future to submit an annual report to Parliament. It fosters cooperation and collaboration through an advisory council, and it demands an updating to Canadians on how we are doing. It encourages increased funding for research, for clinical care, and for patient support, and for family support. And it does that in the way the federal government alone can do it, through the powers of convening, the powers of organizing, the powers of displaying exemplary forms of care and ensuring that we're able to spread that across the country. There may be gems of care I don't know about in Winnipeg or Vancouver or Cape Breton Island. I don't know where those models of care are. By having a collaborative approach, we will learn where those things are and be sure that we have that kind of cooperation, also bringing in best international practices. The bill, I think, is quite clever, and I think it's clever in that it draws attention to the issue, it requires the government to pay attention and report back to Canadians, it fosters, through an advisory group, that collaboration, and it begins to put some accountability into the government where Canadians are looking for it in this particular disease. I'm sure you've had drawn at your attention the report that was issued just last week or a week and a half ago in November, Dementia in Canada, from the Senate, committee co-chaired by my good friend and colleague Kenneth Ogilvie, as well as Senator Art Eggleton. It's really a very fine study on dementia. And what it calls for is a collaborative approach that brings what they're calling a Canadian Partnership to Address Dementia. By having an advisory committee embedded in this legislation, we will actually be able to live out what the Senate, after a very thorough study, much more thorough than we've done in the House of Commons, would actually envision. I commend it to your attention and to take great care as you go through clause by clause that we don't lose the spirit of what the Senate has learned, that Canadians are looking for leadership, that we can provide that leadership by having such an advisory council, bringing together the best of both clinical and research, as well as social workers and family caregivers, and those living with dementia. I'm just going to close by talking about an event I was at last week. The Alzheimer's Society of Toronto, a formidable force, under the umbrella of the Alzheimer's Society of Canada and Alzheimer's Ontario, had a fundraiser, an amazingly successful fundraiser, with really the best dinner I've had at a fundraiser in my life. That's an aside. At that event, a woman with Alzheimer's made the keynote speech. She carefully and cautiously chose her words and moved me to tears as a person who is aware of her circumstances, is looking at what my former colleague Marion Ritchie called the long journey home, and gave me both the courage and empowered me to keep fighting this fight. I'm encouraging you to do the same, to make sure that we show Canadians that this Parliament takes this disease seriously and will take every step we can to make sure that we engage with those who know more than we do and make a difference in the world of Alzheimer's and other dementias. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and appreciate your comments. Ms. Harder, earlier we moved a motion with unanimous consent to just reduce it to one series of questions. We're not trying to prevent anybody from having opinions or anything, but this is our only chance today to voice our opinion on this bill. If we don't complete the bill today, it goes back unamended and uncommented to Parliament. So I'm just trying. I'm not trying to rush anybody, but I just want to make sure that we have a chance to have our voice. And I do kind of sense a consensus on it. So we're going to start our question period now. There'll be 7 minutes of questions. We're going to start with Ms. Sidhu, and I understand you're going to split your time with Mr. Oliver.
Yes, thank you, Chair. First, I want to thank you for coming together to put forward this bill. We heard some very powerful testimony at the last meeting on this topic. I wanted to highlight the role of caregiver, particularly the wait time for getting PSW and support workers. I met with the Canadian Nurses Association the other day, and we discussed this matter. Can you talk about how you view the role of support worker and family members who take time off to support their ailing parents or dependent within this bill and future strategy?
Well, let me start off. I'm supportive of any measures that change the Income Tax Act, quite frankly, in terms of giving credit to people who take time off to look after, and there have been steps in that direction, and I'd certainly welcome anything further, because these things do take a great toll on families, and that's one of the things that has impressed me. In fact, one of the witnesses that you had here, I believe yesterday, Tanya Levesque, and talking about how much time she has had to devote and spend time. What happens is it becomes, quite frankly, a full-time job for the people who are the spouses of these individuals who are suffering from this. I mean, they need care all the time. And, I set out in my opening remarks the amount of time that it takes healthcare workers when people end up in these facilities. I'm hoping, and it's a sincere hope, that someday we will solve this. We will get a cure for Alzheimer's, that we can do this. But it's not going to be done unless there is coordinated research into this, and I'm hoping that one of the things that something bill like this would help that interchange, that exchange of information. My colleague Mr. Oliphant said about the model that they have instituted in his area of Toronto with respect to the treatment of people. This is exactly the kind of information we want to share, and I believe that bringing together a council and advisory council set out in this bill would be a step in that direction. So thank you.
And I just might add that that advisory council could look at other issues. I mean, much of what you say is really within provincial jurisdiction in the delivery of health care. This body, however, could look at things which are in the federal realm to ease that burden on families and caregivers. I should mention that you're at Angus Homes. The monthly charge for someone living in that home on Merton Street is in the $2,000 range. I think it's about $2,400 a month right now, over between $2,000 and $3,000 a month. At Cedarhurst, it's $7,000 a month. They're both not-for-profits, but because we have no subsidy, provincial subsidy for the one home we have for the other, that's how much it costs. And so we have to look at ways that we find support. So people will be living at home. They need home care. They need all those things which every disease group needs. This is a way to draw attention to those needs, I think, in a profound way, which will have spillover effects into other diseases as well.
You're
Do I have
done?
a time?
Pardon?
Do I have a time or should I?
Mr. Oliver now for the last half.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the bill, and I think all of us know and have family members that are experiencing dementia, so it's I think a very important piece to come. My question goes to the concept of this being a model for other diseases, and it's the clause that deals with the advisory board that be established. So I'm kind of picturing a world where the minister is trying to run 15 to 20 advisory boards. And how they would live with that and how they would manage that kind of environment. Do you have any thoughts or comments on this, on what might be the criteria for when an advisory board would be established? Another thought I had is the time-limited nature of it. It was 3 years with potential renewal. If we just had a 3-year term and then sunsetted them, it might be easier. So that's where I'm looking for advice, I think, on this one. How do we manage multiple advisory boards?
One of the things I think about this does not take up all the time or the efforts or the resources of the Minister of Health. I mean, it's set out in a way about adjourning this or bringing this committee together a couple of times a year, and then again with a clause to revisit the whole idea. So we're not taking up and demanding that the minister take this. I mean, I know the Minister of Health, whether provincial or federal, they have a huge numbers, but I believe this area of Alzheimer's, when I thought about it and had the opportunity to have a look at it, that I thought there was a gap in this area here, and it's something that I wasn't even sure 30 years ago, if you start talking about this, how aware I was or anybody was aware of these things, but this has grown exponentially. And when I read in the last number of months prior to introducing this bill that this thing is going to be doubling. I mean, this is, and with the aging population in Canada, and again, aging is not the, it's one of the criteria that you would look at, but it's independent, quite frankly, of aging, because we all know people who in their 40s or their 50s have obtained Alzheimer's. But I thought it's good that we focus on this particular disease here. And again, I think if you look at it carefully, it's not taking up all the minister's time, and I think it's well worth the resources and the time.
I would actually add that I think this is one of the most economical ways for a government to work efficiently. That this actually serves a minister well, and I don't think there is any minister that wouldn't be well served by having good advice, and that good advice is unpaid. It is a meeting once or twice a year from experts, getting that kind of expertise advice into a minister, into a Department of Health, into the Public Health Agency of Canada. I think it's a superb and very, very economical way of doing it, far more than hiring consultants. I mean, one of the realities is that governments hire consultants all the time. And I think this is a much more effective, more organic, and more community-based way of getting that information into a minister's head and heart.
And just one quick other last question, then. The focus is on a national dementia strategy. There's a weighting in the bill to Alzheimer's, and as you know, there's multiple causes. Alzheimer's the main cause, but there's Huntington's, there's Parkinson's, there's vascular dementia. Would you have a reaction if we focus this on dementia versus Alzheimer's and dementia, and just got that straight?
Dementia is included, but the focus of the bill was Alzheimer's. That was the bill because, again, what I have read on this, and I experienced it for quite a number of years, but have researched this quite a bit in the last 6 months or so. It seems to me this is something that we could someday be able to cure, to really make a difference. And so I'd like the focus to be on Alzheimer's, but of course there are other dementias because this is a component of that. So that's my thoughts on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I understand there are amendments coming in. I understand taking a named society out of the bill. I get that because those are temporal and you want a bill that is bigger. I think that it's important to focus, as the Senate has, on dementia. I get that. I think taking any mention of Alzheimer's out is problematic politically as well. And I think that there is a way to shape that phrasing that at least preserves Alzheimer's in the bill in some way, while understanding, as the Senate did, that dementia is quite broad. So I would just hope that any kind of expunging of Alzheimer's all the way through doesn't happen, that there's a clever way to ensure that we keep that word there. And I argue, partly out of personal story, but I have seen in my own life how Alzheimer's is what people first think, and it can actually do a disservice to people with other dementias. So I understand the reason to focus on dementia. I would just try to hold some concept of Alzheimer's in this bill.
Time's up. Mr. Weber.
I'd like to share my time with the Honourable Harder here, please. First of all, I have to applaud you, Mr. Nicholson, for your work on this bill. It's a fantastic bill, and I applaud you too, Mr. Oliphant, for supporting the bill. I think it's something that has to be done. My grandfather had Parkinson's as well, and so I know how hard it was to go through 9 long years in long-term care for him. Quickly, I know that both of you likely have seen the proposed amendments to this bill. I assume you have. And Mr. Oliphant, you just talked a little bit about one portion of it, but I'd like to know Mr. Nicholson's thoughts on the proposed amendments, and perhaps share with us any concern you have there, and likewise with Mr. Oliphant, if you can share your thoughts on the proposed amendments to this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Weber, and thank you for your interest in this. This bill was unanimously supported by Parliament at second reading, and as you know, that's when bills are substantially supported or not supported, and I was very grateful at the time that this received the support of every single member of the House of Commons. And so that's what you're dealing with here, number one. My intention was to focus this on Alzheimer's because of my belief that someday we will get a cure for this, but there should be a coordination between all those who want to do something about this disease, who want to find a cure, for all those who want to care for people in this, who are suffering from this disease. And my colleague, Mr. Oliphant, here made a very good point. If there are good practices somewhere, then let's share those. I remember as a regional councillor, when we had seniors' homes in the region of Niagara, they kept learning from the previous ones that were built and the sharing of information. And it was fascinating and heartwarming for me to see as each one got built in Niagara, they kept building on what they had learned or what they had heard on the best way to treat. And so to the extent that we do anything to sort of coordinate that, bring together these good ideas, we are farther ahead on this. And so I don't want this to get lost and say all health diseases, you know what I mean? I'd like to solve all health diseases, everyone would, but I like the focus, and I believe the focus of the bill as it was passed by Parliament at second reading is on Alzheimer's and other dementia.
Agreed, and I understand that I guess if I'm going to go to the wall, it's for that committee, for the advisory committee. That would be my number one concern on this bill, because I know the way things get lost in bureaucracies, and ministers they suffer from this worst disease, which is called bureaucratic capture. And I think what the advisory committee does is it ensures that there is a living, constant community of advice coming from people on the ground. And that can get, at a federal level, that can get lost very easily. It's a little bit easier to keep that at a local level or at a provincial level. At the federal level, to keep this real and away from getting into bureaucraties, I think we need that kind of a committee. It's a very light committee, and it's not onerous. I think ministers could benefit from that. In terms of Alzheimer's and other dementias, as I said, I would like that name in there somewhere. I think I don't want to lose it completely, but I understand broadening it because of Parkinson's and vascular and other forms of dementia. I get that as well. Okay. I've even noticed that as Uric Angus Holmes had to develop, it moved from Alzheimer's and other dementias to dementia and Alzheimer's. Okay. It's the way the world is.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. How much more time have we got?
You have 2 minutes and 49 seconds.
Go, you go. Just a very quick answer to this. You talked about the G8 conference on Alzheimer's back in 2013. What are other jurisdictions doing? Are they way ahead of us, Mr. Nicholson, with regard to
It's
progress?
hard to say. I mean, I did have, in an effort to shorten my comments, I didn't get into all that, but I think there is a greater awareness, and it's not just the G8. I think I mentioned the United Nations in terms of kind of coordinating this information. There is a greater realization of the globalization of this world here, that we have to share this information, that we are not alone on any of these issues here. That if you go back 50 or 70 years ago, the research was done exclusively and it wasn't shared. And there's a greater realization today, and I think it's a step in the right direction, that we share information. And again, it's a function of the globalization of the world, and it's what we have to do. And it benefits all of us.
Yeah. Great. Sorry.
Awesome. So I think this is what I'm hearing you say, and I just want to make sure, with regards to the language using Alzheimer's versus just forms of dementia in general, if we were to put a focus on Alzheimer's, it could mean that we find a cure, and the probability of that is quite high based on the research that's taking place both in Canada and could further take place with greater funding and expertise on this matter, and with a partnership with other countries. Whereas if we were to take that same chunk of money and spread it over, let's say, 10 different dementias, it wouldn't go nearly as far and wouldn't produce a cure. Am I understanding you correctly on this?
I'm hoping, I mean, we want to solve all these different issues, but I've come to the conclusion that if one of the focuses of governments and government coordination and international on Alzheimer's, that we can make and will make a substantial difference with respect to this particular disease. Those are my thoughts on it.
I guess the last thing I would ask you then is, do you have the stats in terms of if we look at the whole spectrum of dementias, is Alzheimer's the one that the greatest percentage of the population suffers with?
I would say it, yeah.
What I've read, it's about half.
Okay.
So about half of dementia is Alzheimer's, and the other half is the collection of a variety of ones. It's tough, though, when you look at a family, because the family going, so if the focus is on research, absolutely, there's some really important stuff happening there. A family's life is really more than disrupted, overturned by any of those dementias. So my problem is, as a pastor, dealing with families, and I'm the bleeding heart at this table, I want to help them all. And I've just been through too many families where they just don't know where to turn. And I am looking for federal government leadership in that way. It'll be up to you to decide how much you want to focus in on precision and how much you want to broaden that mandate. It'll be up to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Ms. Blaney, welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
7 minutes.
And thank you to our witnesses today. You know, I spent many years volunteering for an organization that provided respite, and a large amount of the families that I worked with were people who were dealing with dementia. And so I would either support the person with dementia or support the family in different ways. And so I have a great amount of compassion for the significant impacts that this has on communities and the families. My first question is going to go to you, Mr. Nicholson. You know, you mentioned thanks earlier to Claude Gravel, who introduced the bill C-356, which was a national strategy for dementia. Unfortunately, that bill was defeated, and it was a very close vote. 140 said no, 139 said yes. The majority of the Conservative MPs, including yourself, did not vote positively for this bill. So I'm just curious, given how similar your legislation is to the last bill, why did you choose to narrow its focus?
Yeah. I thought about this, as I say, about 6 months ago on this, and I remembered the bill because I started thinking about and reading about, quite frankly, the problems with Alzheimer's and indeed other dementias. And while it is something I experienced in my own family, when I looked at it and I thought, okay, the bill that we had before Parliament, I believed, would have required a royal recommendation. That was what we heard at the time, which means it wouldn't have gone forward. The other problem with it was the timelines were this. And so if you'll notice in mine, I made it the minister will convene a meeting within 180 days, within 6 months, basically. I thought that was more realistic than a statute requiring the minister to move on this thing in several weeks. I didn't think that was realistic. Plus the feedback that I received at the time, it was a royal recommendation would have been needed, and therefore it wasn't going to proceed. That being said, so when I thought about that, I thought, okay, if we can modify that, if we can modify those challenges, then I believe that the bill can or should be able to go forward. And my colleague, Mr. Oliphant, will confirm this, that at the time I spoke with him about this or something, he analyzed the bill just on those counts alone, so that when it comes before you here today, I don't think you've probably heard anybody or you've had any advice that it will need a royal recommendation, because we tried to be very careful. And I believe that the timelines were very realistic. But at the same time, the overall concept of getting into this area, on every occasion I have mentioned, Mr. Gravel, when I have spoken with people privately who have, as you can probably imagine, have engaged me on this, I have pointed out that this is not the first time that the Parliament has had a look at this, and I hope that it goes forward. And again, I asked a colleague from another political party to second this bill here, because I do want it to be accepted by everyone. So those are my comments.
Okay, Mr. Nicholson, if you're concerned that the legislated remuneration requirement would act as a barrier to this bill's passage or the past bills, why is it necessary that in your bill you actually explicitly forbid any form of remuneration?
I didn't want to have anything that the argument made. You know what happens on these things, and people will make the argument, okay, this is going to require money from the government, or the government's going to have to spend money. So I tried to be as careful as possible, because I know there are people across this country who are prepared. I mean, we meet them all. Yourself, you talked about yourself, your contributions. I met many people like you in my own constituency of Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and Fort Erie, who just contribute their time. They're volunteers. They're not in it to be paid. And so I believe that there are experts who would come together for this, and by putting in there, I hope to avoid the argument that this would need a royal recommendation, because I didn't want to have any reason, a technical reason, why something like this would not go ahead. Those were my reasons.
I would like to add to it. In 2011, the people spoke and sent me home from this place, and brought me back in 2015. But between 2011 and 2015, I was president and CEO of a national health charity for people with asthma, another A. And the way we would focus as a health charity is actually we would prefer not to have remuneration at a government advisory board, because that is part of our job as a society. We would like expenses paid for going to meetings. However, to maintain our independence, to maintain our integrity as a not-for-profit and charitable organization. We were both a patient organization as well as a health charity. We would think it is actually appropriate for us to work in that charitable sector, advising government. That doesn't mean we don't want government funding for various projects. We were always looking for PHAC funding, Public Health Agency of Canada funding, etc. However, that part of the bill, actually, I would actually say is not a negative, is a positive in the health charity world. It's the way we work, and it's the way we keep our independence, and the way we do it. And in terms of caregivers and patients going to those meetings, again, we think that expenses, obviously, and that's the way meetings happen. There's a budget for a meeting, but remuneration in terms of actually being paid for a per diem payment for your expertise would not be appropriate.
So when I talk about remuneration, that is part of what we're talking about, is refunding expenses. So one of the challenges, because this is very clear, nothing that's in the legislation. And, I also ran a charity for 8 years. And, one of the challenges that I feel could come to this bill is that we're losing people. We saw the witnesses that were here earlier this week, and there were people that are working very hard, and especially when you think about direct caregivers. So we heard about the direct caregiver and how financially significant the impacts were. And so if we offer absolutely nothing, it sort of cuts off potentially some groups of people.
No.
So
actually, I would disagree.
Okay.
That this is actually, they would receive, nobody would receive remuneration for the performance of their duties. That very much in my mind is payment for expertise. Absolutely, if you're having an advisory committee meeting, you would follow Treasury Board rules, etc. That would work into current departmental budgets.
then I look forward to seeing that happen.
So there was never an intention to not pay refund expenses for meetings. That should be paid.
Then I think it should be something that's removed from the legislation. But I want to get onto another issue, which is, unlike Bill C-356, the National Strategy for Dementia Act, this legislation doesn't contain any provisions to augment the capabilities of the voluntary sector. Can you explain why you choose to exclude any mention of the voluntary sector from Bill C-233?
The voluntary sector is, is inherent part of what this is all about, people who volunteers. I mean, what we are trying to do is bring together people who either have expertise, and it could be in many ways, their expertise, they could be brought together. We try to be as inclusive as possible with respect to the legislation to bring together this advisory board, and this is a step in the right direction. And I actually...
It's there, the lay advocacy sector.
Yeah.
It's there.
It's there, so it is not restrictive, and indeed the volunteer sector is huge in all aspects of looking after people who have suffered from diseases such as this. And again, I use the word specifically remuneration, which is, and this is the lawyer in me, this is, the payment for expertise, the expenses of getting to the meeting here or the hotel or over there is not included in this.
Time's up.
Okay.
And that concludes our, no, it doesn't conclude our round of questions. Mr. Kung.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks, colleagues, for bringing this bill forward. And as we discussed before, almost everybody is affected by some kind of mental disease in their family or friends or closest circle. And this is a good bill. And of course, you're going to have my support. So my question is, at the first meeting on Bill C-233, on November 17, Mimi Loy Young, farmers.
I understood that we were going to go through 7 minutes each party, and then we would end the questioning at that time. And
we're going to do the first round of 7-minute questions. So it's Liberal, Conservative, New Democratic, and Liberal.
And Liberal again, okay. I just, from the way you made it sound, it was 7 minutes each, and then we would end it from there, but I guess I mistook it.
Just one round.
All right.
The first round, okay? Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start again. At its first meeting on Bill C-233 on November 17, Mimi Lo Young, former CEO of the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, told the committee that women are most affected by the disease, both having the disease at 65% and being the primary caregivers 72%. So do you anticipate that is gender-based analysis plus assessment will form part of the discussions relating to establishing any national strategy on Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia?
I think it's an excellent point, and that gives me a chance also to commend Mimi and her work while she was the CEO of the Alzheimer's Society, and her fine work. And I think her point is well taken, that there are certain diseases that disproportionately affect women, and this is one of them. Dementia does disproportionately affect women. So the gender-based analysis, we believe, has been done. Two guys sitting down here, frankly. But we're looking at this disease to recognize that diseases that have affected women have historically had less attention, less funding, less research than diseases that have affected men. And you look at the kind of the funding that has gone, and we're trying to change that. I don't think that we have a focus on women in this bill, but because we're looking at dementia, it will focus itself on women and men. And because women have that caregiver facility, I think that looking at other things from the federal perspective that could affect this, whether it's changes to EI or episodic respite care and those kinds of things could be discussed because there is a federal mandate there. So I think that this is an important statement that we need to put attention on diseases that have disproportionately affected women.
Thank you, sir. And my second question is, there's a bill acknowledges the role of caregivers for individual living with Alzheimer's disease, and you talked a little bit about home care. So home care will be partially playing their role in that, or it will be main focused on the home care, because home care is I'm a fan of home care because home care have helped me personally, my family, and I think home care can help everybody if we have proper home care in place.
And this bill won't directly impact on long-term care or home care or into the various things that need to go into that National Health Accord. It would focus instead on the disease that could lead to requirements for it. But I think obviously I would encourage this committee to be taking up some of those issues. This bill, I would say, only indirectly would affect it. But an advisory committee could remind the minister about other responsibilities that he or she would have, and so it could fit in.
I gave the example of the tax credit for people who look after people, and that this is another issue, and it's good that you raise that, because this is a huge component of this. It's the individual who has acquired these disease suffers, but everyone around him or her suffers as well.
Because we can have all kind of advisory boards in place, and if there is no backup support in place, and I think it's defeating the purpose of doing all this. How much time do I have, Mr. Chair?
13 seconds.
Okay, so I'll share with my time.
All right.
Mr. John Oliver.
Thanks very much. So I just wanted to come back one more time to the intent of the bill. Sorry to be focused on this, but we heard from Dale Goldhawk, Vice Chair of the Alzheimer's Disease International, from David Henderson, Canadian Society of Palliative Care Physicians, heard from Kathleen Jamieson and Sheila Pither, Council of Senior Citizens from British Columbia, and from Mimi Lo and others. They all spoke to the need for a national dementia strategy. They all want a cure for Alzheimer's, but they spoke to the need for a national dementia strategy. I'm concerned there's two agendas in this bill. There's the drive for the cure for Alzheimer's, but at the same time there's a need to have a national strategy in how we help people and caregivers living with dementia continue. So I just, one last time, just maybe start with you, Mr. Ollivant, and then Mr. Nicholson, on your views of separating these out a bit more.
It's one of those cases where everything is good.
Yeah.
And I think this week when I read the Senate report on dementia, I recognize that the bill needed to have that. I think it does have it in it, and it's drawn attention to Alzheimer's and other dementias. My overall concern is people, and people with dementia, regardless of where it comes from. That's my first thing. However, I recognize that Alzheimer's is a focused area of research that needs attention, and I just don't want to lose it completely, because I think that there is huge promise in that, whether it's at Baycrest Center or others where they're doing that kind of focused research. My hope is that it doesn't get lost in the whole mix, but the reality is a dementia is a horrible disease that people are going through, and I wanted people to be cared for. But
I want the same thing, of course, but I think it's important that we do focus on Alzheimer's. That we know what the statistics are telling us. We know the international attempts to coordinate research into this particular area, and I don't want to lose that by all other good areas of research that we can and should be doing. And so I have to make a comment as well about that Senate committee here. Many times our Senate colleagues, and again, I don't want to digress from what we're talking about here, about the criticism sometimes that's directed at the Senate, but they do come up with very good reports. And in the different portfolios that I have had over the years, I very much appreciated all the work that they did. And this is just another example of the kind of good work and good research that they produce. Thank you.
Time is up.
Could I just close, Mr. Chair, with saying there are many relatively new MPs on this committee, and I hope that they look at the Rob show and look at ways that you can actually make a huge difference in Parliament by bringing bills together, by working cross-party lines. I think this is the way the Parliament should work. It started with Mr. Nicholson by inviting me, and I think that's the way we have to work. So if you're considering a private member's bill and you drew too low in the lottery, as I did, find a nice person across the aisle and work on it. And just my last thing is, this wouldn't have happened without the groundwork from Claude, a good friend. And so I think that is a model, so I encourage you to do it, because it's fun too.
I obviously chose the right nice guy across the aisle as well, so it goes both ways. Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's great that you support each other so well. But we deal with some incredible subject at this committee, and we hear some incredible testimony. The testimony we've heard today and previously on this subject are really moving. But this committee hears things. We just wish that all Canadians could sit on this committee sometimes and hear about opioid addictions and pharmaceutical issues and Alzheimer's disease issues, and we'd probably have a much different approach to health issues if everybody could hear what we hear. Hear the first line responders, the paramedics and the firefighters that land on the scene quite often, and hear their testimony is incredible. But anyway, we want to thank you very much. Actually, I just want to blow my own horn here a little bit. Years ago, Mr. Nicholson might remember that I had a private member's bill to develop a brain tumor registry in Canada. We had there was no registry, there was no records. Doctors couldn't compare situations across the country, but that was a private member's bill that passed, as yours hopefully will. And it's quite gratifying to have that happen. Anyway, thank you very much for your testimony. We're going to take a little break, just a 1-minute break, and then we're going to do a clause by clause and see if we can complete this. Thank you.
Could I ask it to be a 2-minute break, please, or a 3-minute break?
2-minute break.
Okay, thanks.
reconvening, and I want to welcome our legislative clerk, Mr. Champagne, who are going to help us through this process of clause by clause. Mr. Carey.
But thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I got to say, I was a little bit surprised and shocked about these amendments being how much they're changing actually the real intent of the bill. Even the last one I have here, the fourth amendment, says change it to the Dementia Act. And considering all the testimony that we've had, I just kind of would like to ask my colleague, he got all these...
I think let's go through it clause by clause. There may be some changes. I suspect there will be. So.
Well, I just want to say, like, where did these come from? Who was asking for this?
Mr. Oliver.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question, Colin. So it was based on the first round of testimony where we heard just that we needed national strategies for dementia, and there was a real weighting to dementia, and we heard that from the witnesses and the caregivers and others that was their focus. But I heard today that a big part of Mr. Nicholson's intent was to deal with Alzheimer's specifically in that disease. So I'm going to withdraw those. I'm not going to table them. They aren't on the table. I think we should do the clause. There's some area. I'm torn between if every single disease advocacy group wants to have, I mean, we can deal with every single type of cancer, every single type of diabetes, every single type of anything. It's the question of disease emphasis or a condition or the condition. So it's like palliative care. I think we need a national strategy for palliative care, absolutely. The causes of people being in palliation are multiple. So likewise, we need a national strategy for dementia. The causes are multiple for dementia, but I think the need to leave it referencing to Alzheimer's based on what I heard from Mr. Nicholson and his intent is important, so that's why I'm not tabling that. But I'll make some changes through these to rebalance that a bit where I think it is a bit too weighted to Alzheimer's. It's fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you. Okay, we're going to move to clause by clause. Yes, Dr. Ailes.
Yes, before we go in camera, Mr. Chair, could I seek unanimous consent from the committee to have the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health present for the clause by clause discussion?
Well, I don't think we're going to go in camera, are we? We don't have to go in camera for this. And,
oh, we don't?
No. So.
Oh, well then, withdrawn.
Okay, so it's been the practice of the committee to stay out of camera as much as we can, and I think we'll continue that. So we're glad to have our Parliamentary Secretary here.
My bad.
Okay. I'm going to call each clause, starting with Clause 2, and if there are amendments to be made, I'll recognize the member proposing them, and then if there's discussion, we'll discuss it, and then we'll have a debate. If there's a clause that you don't agree with and want deleted, we'll just vote against it. We won't. It doesn't require a motion to delete it. You just vote against the clause. So we are going to move to Clause 2. We're going to...
Are we touching the preamble?
We'll leave the preamble and the name to the end.
Okay.
We're going to start with Clause 2. So, does Clause 2 carry? All in favor of Clause 2? Anybody in favor of Clause 2? Okay. All opposed?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just really quickly here, we're voting on a bill. So if I may, can we insist that hands are shown or not shown based on the vote rather than it just being assumed?
It makes my life easier, so
Thank
yes,
you.
so we'll ask people to vote. So shall Clause 2 carry? Yes? Show of hands? Are those opposed? Clause 2 carries. Clause 3, does Clause 3 carry? Hands? Yes, in favor? Yes.
So Clause 3(1)(a), this is the only clause I wanted to make, in the whole of 3, the only one I would like to make a change in is 3(1)(a), and I would like to change it to developing specific national objectives in order to improve the situations of persons suffering from dementia and decrease the burden of these diseases on Canadian society. That's the one area where I was going to remove the Alzheimer's disease reference.
What clause is that again?
So
clause
it's 3(1)(a).
3(1)(a).
Developing specific national objectives in order to improve the situations of persons suffering from dementia and decrease the burden of these diseases on Canadian society. The rest, B, C, D, E, and F and G, where there's reference to Alzheimer's, I was happy with those. It's just that broad statement about decreasing the impact of dementia.
All right, Dr. Carey.
Well, I think we should just leave it the way it is because it says Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. When our colleagues just finished testifying, like this was designed to be a national strategy on Alzheimer's disease. So to take Alzheimer's disease out defeats the purpose. By having that word "and," I think it is very clear that there are other forms of dementia. So as it reads right now, developing specific national objectives in order to improve the situation of persons suffering from Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia and decrease the burden of these diseases on Canadian society. I think it reads the way that the authors intended, plus the way that we gave it unanimous consent. I don't see any reason for taking that out.
Ms. Harder.
I guess I would just ask Mr. Oliver just to clarify why we would leave it in paragraph 1, but then we would want to change it in, or sorry, yeah, I guess 3.1, but then in A we would change it. I just would like to understand.
So A
for
for me was focused on dementia and living with dementia, and again I'm coming back to where I thought we should put the emphasis on dementia, which is what the Senate report I believe tried to do as well. We focus on dementia. The others, in terms of research related to Alzheimer's disease, it's very, very different. So that's why I was content with the rest of them. I just wanted to make sure that we were very clear that we were focusing on the consequences of dementia and how people live with them.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify the vote we had with regard to the clause of the bill. I opposed it publicly, but I assumed that we were voting on the amendments. So I retract my vote as a no on the clause of the bill. I support the clause in the bill, but now we're working on the amendments, and I don't support this amendment or any of the amendments. You know, we just had testimony here from our witnesses from both parties. They referred to themselves as the Rob Show. They worked together on this bill for quite some time. They've had help with the industry, with the Alzheimer's associations throughout the country, and now we're here in committee with all these changes, these amendments from their honourable member across. And you know, I question where these amendments are coming from. Obviously, they're coming from the bureaucrats through you to here, and I just want to say that I do.
Floor, the only amendment is changing.
And I'm talking on that one amendment, and I won't have to reiterate for the next 25 amendments, or how many do we count here? 17 amendments we have. To me, it's the work has been done. We're here now. Now we're making amendments through bureaucrats, is what my assumption is. I think the groundwork has been done, and to continue on with these 18 amendments, I just think it's just ridiculous when the work has already been done and has been worked on by both the Liberals and the Conservatives here. So I just want to publicly state that I will not support this amendment or any other one. Thank you.
Ms. Harder.
Am I next on the list? Yes?
Well, you're the only one on the list.
Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Oliver, just a point of clarification here then. So this statement is with regards to national objectives, and so in your estimation, you're saying when it comes to setting our objectives, it shouldn't just be focused on Alzheimer's as the primary, but it should be focused on all forms of dementia. Am I understanding that correctly?
It was based on the first round of witnesses where they said they wanted a national dementia strategy. And I asked specific questions about the balance between Alzheimer's and dementia, and in this case, I heard them say very clearly, the first round of witnesses, that they were looking for a national dementia strategy, which I think that paragraph states.
Okay. Is your intent then, and I guess I'm taking you at your word, but is your intent then to say if we put forward a national strategy with regards to all forms of dementia, then from there, the next part of that bill then is encouraging greater investment in all areas of research related to Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. So Alzheimer's does take the lead in that paragraph, followed by all forms of dementia. Would your intent be to change that paragraph as well?
No, as I said at the beginning, the only of clause 3. So first of all, I'm not tabling those. Having heard this testimony,
Yes.
I've asked them not to table
Yes.
that first round of amendments, because I think it was really important what we heard from the authors and the intent of the bill that they had. So, but I also want to respect what we heard from the witnesses in the first round. So I was not going to make any other changes in clause 3 or ask for any other changes in clause 3, except for this one that deals with the National Strategy for Dementia, which I thought was more consistent with what we heard from our witnesses.
Okay, thank you.
I hear my colleague, and I do recognize that the Senate did a lot of work on this, but I thought I'd just ask the clerk, is this amendment even in order? Because the whole idea here is the national strategy on Alzheimer's disease, and by taking that out, is that in order? Can I ask the clerk that?
You're up.
Yeah, I agree that it changes the bill significantly, but procedurally speaking, it's perfectly in order because it's within the scope of the bill.
But yeah, procedure is procedure, but intent is intent, right? And this is the bill. This is the form that it passed through the House. We got unanimous support, and I'm really concerned that if we start to open this up, it'll really take away from what both Mr. Nicholson and Mr. Oliphant worked very hard together. It's I think it's not a partisan issue here. We heard from the witnesses how really enthusiastic they were to get through this entire process. So by doing this, I think my colleague, maybe inadvertently, is really changing the entire purpose of what our two colleagues want to bring forward. So we can talk procedure, we can go back and forth on procedure, but really when we're here in front of committee, we should honor the intent of our colleagues that brought this forward, honor the intent of our colleagues in the House of Commons that unanimously voted on this bill. So I really think that we should pay attention to what the clerk said here, because at the end of the day, we are masters of our own destiny, and I think it would be prudent for us to respect what our colleagues said.
Just a point that the House voted to send it to this committee to be examined and possibly amended. I mean, that's what our role is, and that's what we're here for, and we're going to have a debate on this. And Mr. Oliver, you're up next.
So I think I've been convinced by my colleagues, convinced as well by the earlier, so I'll withdraw this, my proposed amendment, and we can move on.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, now we have I guess we could just, Mr. Kine.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. But this is the part of the democratic process. This is what we do. When the bill was unanimously supported in the House, that was the intent of the bill. I believe was supported. So not the whole bill. So what we have to go through. That's why we're going through it clause by clause.
That's what we're doing. So any further comments on clause 3? Does clause 3 carry? Show of hands. Clause 3 carry? Those opposed? Clause 3 carries. That's the clause, the National Strategy Clause, the one you're talking about that you just discussed. Okay, clause 4. Ms. Blaney.
Sorry, the conference clause, sorry, I'm confused by numbering here. So under the national strategy, I guess it's still clause 3, there's a 2, 3, is it 3-2 then, the conference? Sorry, so I was just confused in the layout of how we're doing this.
Well, we're talking.
I was looking at 3-1 national strategy, and then we have 3-2. So I do.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I do apologize. I didn't realize that was part of the clause that we were discussing, and I'm apologize to also to Mr. Carey, because this is one, Dr. Carey, this is one that I did hear from Mr. Oliphant that he thought it should be changed, and it's simply how we populate the conference.
So we're done.
It's representatives from, and the focus is on the Alzheimer's Society and the advocacy groups and doesn't mention others. So I'd like to either delete that or add a clause and other advocacy groups from other dimensions.
Point of order. We're on clause 3, correct?
We're actually on.
And
we've
moving on
passed
to clause 4?
Clause 3 is passed?
We
All right.
passed
So I missed
clause
it?
3,
Okay.
yep. And it will, if we could go back to it with unanimous consent, but it's.
Okay.
On a point of order, I was under the impression also that clause 3 was 3.1, and then 3.2. That's the only paragraph that was a second.
But we
So
haven't
I'm-
gone through
I
A, B,
was,
C, D, and I just asked for clause 3 to carry, and we had a show of hands and it passed. So with unanimous consent, we could go back and do it if you want, if you request that. Ms. Harder?
No, that's all. Just a point of order. We're on clause 4 now.
Yeah, okay. So, we're on clause 4. All right, clause 4.
That's me.
Mr. Oliver.
So same, I was going to make this change before, but it's also 4B, representatives, it's the creation of the advisory board, including representatives from, and it's limited to Alzheimer's Society of Canada and Alzheimer advocacy groups. So I wanted to either add and other advocacy groups from with resulting in dementia, or we just say representatives from dementia advocacy groups.
Now, where are we? What?
4B.
4B. Okay.
Sorry, can I just ask for a point of clarification here?
Yeah.
So a clause is 3.1 is clause 1, 3A is clause 2, 3B is clause 3. Am I understanding correctly?
No.
Or
it's
no?
just- No. Those
No?
are.
So we're on clause 4,
We're on
meaning the
clause 4,
substantive
and that
paragraph?
includes 1, 2, 3,
Okay,
4, A, B, C, and D.
thank you.
You're welcome. So, do you have an amendment to propose on?
That clause 4B read representatives from dementia advocacy groups.
And you want to take out the word Alzheimer's Society?
Yeah, so we'll just read representatives from dementia advocacy groups.
You want to explain your amendment?
Because I thought there are so many other forms of dementia, as we heard from the first round of witnesses. There's Huntington's, there's Parkinson's, there's vascular dementia, there's a whole list of other causes of dementia, albeit Alzheimer's is the greatest cause. There are lots of others. I think they would be quite disappointed if they were not represented and didn't have a say, didn't have a voice on a advisory board to the minister.
Okay, we're just going to debate this amendment, and then we'll come to you, Ms. Blaney. I think you have an amendment. On this amendment? Okay, yes.
I appreciate the change, and I think the important thing is to remember the two witnesses here talked deeply about hoping to see a cure happen. And I think it's important that we remember that if that day comes, and hopefully it will come soon, that other dementias need to be addressed. And so if we don't have space in here that says for all forms of dementia, then happily the day will come, Alzheimer's won't be an issue, and I'm concerned that we will lose those opportunities for those other communities. So I support that.
Ms. Harder.
Sorry, I apologize. Mr. Oliver, I do need you to clarify for me exactly what you're proposing to change here.
So I repeat that again then?
Sorry, I just need you to clarify for me exactly the change that you're trying to make
it's
here.
under 4B.
Yes.
So this is the creation, we're dealing with the creation of an advisory board with no more than 15 members.
No, that's not it.
And I'm proposing that the representation on the advisory board be more inclusive than just the Alzheimer's Society and Alzheimer advocacy group. So I was I also heard from Mr. Oliphant that we shouldn't have in a bill the exact name of a society because the people names change. So I was changing this to representatives from dementia advocacy groups, so that Huntington's could be included, Parkinson's could be included, vascular dementia, all those other forms and causes of dementia would have a say at this table. It wouldn't just be the Alzheimer's groups.
Okay, so can you just clarify for me then, is there a specific line that you're looking to change?
Yes, it's 4B.
It's 4B? Okay, and that's, okay. And so then you would want it to read as what?
Representatives from dementia advocacy groups.
Okay. I apologize, thank you.
Yeah, see, my problem with that line is not even so much the mention of Alzheimer's itself, but the fact that you know, this may be a template for other bills dealing with specific diseases, and in it, a specific organization is being named, which is really unprecedented. I would not object to it to be said, if it even had the word Alzheimer's in it, to say representatives from advocacy groups representing Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. If again, we've talked about how the importance of leaving the word Alzheimer's, but having this specific society, this specific group named in the law, as I say, is unprecedented. They could certainly be part of this advisory group, but to have a law that says that this particular organization has to be part of it is the problem I have with it. So if I'm wondering if it would be agreeable to all to say representatives from advocacy groups for Alzheimer's and other dementias, and that would keep it consistent with the rest of the bill, you know, giving this a thrust on Alzheimer's.
Are you moving a sub-amendment to the amendment? I think you are.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I would accept that friendly amendment. So.
Okay. We need you to repeat the sub-amendment.
Okay.
It's just he, I think
Sure.
I can say that he just adds in Alzheimer's and other dementia advocacy groups.
Yes, representatives from
Without saying
advocacy
the
groups
society,
for
without
all.
naming the society.
Pardon me? Without naming the society.
The word Alzheimer's there, but the society isn't.
Exactly. Yes.
Final wording.
You have a.
So, Doug, I heard you say representatives from Alzheimer advocacy groups and other dementia advocacy groups?
Yes.
Yeah. Alzheimer advocacy groups.
And other dementia advocacy groups.
Mr. Conlon.
Mr. Chair, I think I'm going to move, I'd like to move the clock back. If with the unanimous consent, we could go to clause 3 and address this in 3.2, and then I think it will be good. Like then we can change it in clause 4 as well. It will.
We've passed clause 3.
Well, I was just saying if we could, with the unanimous consent, we could go and change it and.
Are you seeking unanimous consent to do that? So
yeah, that's
I'm
what
asking for
that's what I'm
unanimous consent to go back to clause 3. No, we don't have it. So
okay, thank you. I thought I'd try.
Yeah, Mr. Weber.
To address this properly.
Oh, well, I put my hand up before the friendly amendment. I agree with you, and I'm happy with it.
Dr. Carey.
Yeah, I was going to say I think John and Doug came up with a good point there, so I can be supportive of that friendly amendment.
Okay, all in favor? Any further debate on this? All in favor of the sub-amendment to? Yeah, Dr.
Yeah.
Olson.
No, I just wanted to, if it just read kind of awkwardly. This says exactly the same thing. I'm just thinking, I just want to, whether this would just say this less awkwardly. I'm not hung up on this, but representatives of advocacy groups for Alzheimer's and other dementias. It just makes for a better, grammatically better sentence. I'm not, like I say, I'm not hung up on it. If you prefer the original wording, I'll accept that.
It doesn't work with the amendment if you say
Okay,
that.
then never mind. I won't gum up the works on that.
Mr. Oliver.
So I know we've approved clause 3, but we have the same limitations in the conference structure where it's really just Alzheimer's societies and groups that are invited to the conference, and we're excluding the other forms. So I'm wondering if I could have unanimous consent for the motion that was just passed, that wording change. Could we amend, have unanimous consent that where it says the Alzheimer's Society of Canada and other Alzheimer advocacy groups, that we have exactly the same wording inserted, that it's the Alzheimer advocacy groups and other advocacy dementia groups, whatever that wording was, just to make sure that we're going to open that conference up to include those other causes of dementia. So I'm looking for a unanimous consent for just that change back in clause 3.
We just haven't passed that amendment, the sub-amendment
Okay.
yet. So we have to deal with that and then go to the amendment, and then we can go to your motion. So all in favor of the sub-amendment?
The final wording was
Final wording. Do you have the final wording?
I'm just going to write it down.
So, representatives from the Alzheimer's Society of Canada and other dimensions.
So the whole point is to take out Alzheimer's Society.
Yeah, it's important we get that word if we're going to be consistent.
Okay. So representatives from Alzheimer advocacy groups and other dementia advocacy groups.
Advocacy.
Okay.
All in favor of the sub-amendment?
And other.
All opposed? Our sub-amendment passed. Now the amendment by Mr. Oliver.
So again, just to repeat, so I'm going backwards, so I need whatever it's called. The unanimous consent for the clause 3.2 titled conference. The very last sentence describes who will be invited to the conference, and it's the same problem. We have the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, the title of an agency in there, and then it's exclusive of others. So the wording that we just passed for 4B, if we could insert that into 3.2 and have unanimous consent for that.
Mr. Weber.
Clarification on that. If that's the only change, then I'm okay with it. But if you're going to make other changes.
That's the only change.
Ms. Harder.
The only difference that I see is that when we go back to 3, it says the minister must within 180 days after the day on which this act comes into force convene a conference. So it's for a one-time conference that we would insist that the Alzheimer's Society of Canada be invited. Whereas in clause 4, we're talking about an ongoing committee that could last up to 3 years. And so I see the point in removing it from there because it's an ongoing clause. But in terms of inviting the Alzheimer's Society of Canada to this one-time conference that has to take place within 180 days, I actually stand behind that.
I mean, if there was a conference on Alzheimer's, I'm quite sure the Alzheimer's Society would be the #1 invitee probably. But look, we're working really good. We're making progress. We're making the bill better. We're making it more inclusive. So I'm going to ask for unanimous consent to change clause 3.2 just in that one, just to take the society reference out. Do I have unanimous consent to do that?
Mr. Chair, I think we need more clarification here before we vote on this, and perhaps ask the clerk. Is it common to put in societies in bills, specifically targeting specific societies and putting them actually into the bill, or not?
You would have to ask a legal drafter.
Legal draft.
I don't think that there's a problem with it.
Yeah.
It's probably not very, very usual, but I don't see legally speaking.
And this certainly has gone through all the legal route with drafted and such, and now we're here today to make these changes. And to me, I think it's already gone through the legal draft work, and now we're changing basically perhaps maybe even the scope of the bill. And if that's the case, then I think it would be inadmissible to make these changes.
Mr. Oliver.
If we could, but again, I'm more worried about the exclusion of the other advocacy groups from the conference, and I do agree with Ms. Harder's comment, it's 180 days. The Alzheimer's Society of Canada is not going to change its name in 180 days. It's different from the other. So I'm wondering if the friendly amendment could be to add and representatives from other dementia advocacy groups at the end of that. So we have the Alzheimer's Society of Canada and other Alzheimer advocacy groups and other forms of dementia advocacy groups.
I think that makes it better. Just a second, Mr. Kern. You're good? Mr. Ayub.
Well, the intention is what I see. It's only to include, not exclude. So, I'm asking very humbly the members of opposite within that committee, which we did work very well, and we still want to work very well and do the bill, improve the bill. So the intention is to improve, not to change the bill. You can see that. And I think John is doing a great job just to include the party. And I think that's it. I don't want to stay in the legal kinds of thing. There's no legal things. There's only intention.
This has nothing to do with about legal. It's how we're going to. It's a matter of being inclusive. So, Dr. Carey, you're up.
I'd like to have a technical question answered for me in part 2 there, where it says conference. It says. For the purpose, last sentence, for the purpose of developing a national strategy referred to in subsection 1. So let's go back to subsection 1. Now the short title, so clause 1, that's not subsection 1. It's going into 3.1, correct? That's what we're referring to?
Subsection 1, yes. He's talking about the last sentence in right there, and it refers to 3.1.
Oh, no, subsection. Yeah, that's 3.1. Exactly. 3.1.
So what's your comment?
So it is 3.1 that we're referring to there, right?
Yes.
No, we're in 3.2, but the last line in 3.2, John, like what it says, for the purpose of developing a national strategy referred to in subsection 1, that's what I just wanted to clarify, that is what we're referring to. There's 3.1. And okay, now that that's been clarified, Mr. Chair, would you be so kind as to just give us a couple minutes to discuss something within ourselves?
Sure,
like
and
two or three minutes?
Point, because I think that point, 3.1, supports the proposed amendment.
Well, that's what I would like to have clarified.
So just take a break, George.
Just take a break for a second. Can you give us a second?
Just take a 1 minute break. continue on. It's like about 18 committees here at once. Dr. Ayelson, you're up next.
Yeah, again, it speaks. My point speaks to what I had said before about, again, agree with Alzheimer's advocacy groups. But one of the problems that might come up, there's no, what if this society were either to change its name, or if it were to cease to exist? If this would, what would that do to that? Whereas if you just leave that out, leave it general, the Alzheimer's advocacy groups and other dementia groups, that takes care of that potential complication. But I wonder what would happen if this group, completely changed its name or ceased to exist.
I shouldn't be giving the argument here, but the argument is this is a one-shot deal, 180 days from now, and I think that's where the concern is lessened dramatically. Dr. Carey.
First of all, I want to thank the clerk for clarifying what we were talking about, and thank my colleagues. I think we don't have a problem if you want to add, like if we have unanimous consent, I guess we have to go back to 3. And I don't know if the NDP is okay with that. And then just to add other advocacy groups there, I think that would be fine with us. Dementia advocacy groups, yeah, we're okay with that.
So now, can we read out the exact amendment?
Okay, my understanding is that starting on line 17, it says, and other care providers, people suffering from dementia, as well as representatives from the lay advocacy sector, comma, the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, comma, other dementia advocacy groups, and other Alzheimer advocacy groups, comma.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
So any debate? Yes, Ms. Harder.
Can I just simplify that further? It would just read simply on line 19, the Alzheimer's Society of Canada and other dementia advocacy groups.
I think I see nods everywhere.
Yes.
So can we replace that? Mr. Weber.
I would have, if I can change from that, the Alzheimer's Society of Canada and other Alzheimer advocacy groups and other dementia groups for the purpose of developing a national strategy. Yes.
That's just actually that just changes the put the words in different places.
Well, it's
and I like it.
There's more than one advocacy group for Alzheimer's,
yeah.
So we need to include them as well as the dementia groups. So.
All right, now we're going to go with Mr. Weber's last suggestion, and I'm going to seek unanimous consent to change.
I'm sorry for interrupting. And one more thing, to include the 3 sub 1, rather than just section 1 at the end that Mr. Carey
Right, just change it to section 3, but just put the 3 there just to clarify it.
You don't need to.
Don't need to?
No, because you're already in section.
I'm advised that we don't need to, so legally. So, all right, now do we have unanimous consent to change the, I'm sorry, Dr. Ayelson, you're good? You're going?
Yes.
All in favor, unanimous consent. Show of hands, please.
Because we've been going at it too many times before we pass this. Yeah. Okay. Because we want to have the same thing inserted in there.
Starting on the, I don't know what line it's on, but
yeah.
It's 15, 16, 17, 18. The Alzheimer's Society of Canada and other Alzheimer advocacy groups and other dementia groups, dementia advocacy groups for the purpose of developing the national strategy referred to in subsection 1, which again I question why it's not 3 sub 1, but if that's the case, then fine.
On and out. Alzheimer's Society of Canada, comma, other Alzheimer advocacy groups, comma, and other dementia advocacy groups. All in favor of that amendment? Need a show of hands. It needs to be unanimous consent. So look at that. We've made the bill better. Congratulations. All right. Thank you, everybody, for that. We've improved 3, and now we're still on 4. We still have not passed 4. Are there any more amendments to 4? Ms. Blaine, yes.
So I am proposing an amendment to 4.1,
4.1.
and that is on line 23.
Yes.
And the change would be to appoint no more than 20 rather than 15 members to hold office during, continue it on. So I want to change the number from 15 to 20.
You got a reason?
The reason is we want to just make sure there was enough space for diverse groups to come and participate. Narrowing it down to 15 when you look at the size of our country, I think it's important that we make sure there's flexibility for the members or the minister to invite people.
Debate on the proposed amendment. Any comments? Ms. Harder.
I think one concern that I would have, and I do see your point in trying to get as many people to the table as possible. The problem with that is sometimes we get so many people to the table that the voices get lost. I don't know that expanding that group serves us well in the long run. That would be my concern there.
Any other comments? Dr. Carey.
Wondering if we could find out we do have advisory groups, and I don't know how things have been set up the last little bit, but are there any advisory groups that are more than 15 people? Would you guys know?
I think this is the first advisory group of this concept to be proposed, I think.
Well, I think in the past there's a history of advisory groups,
Yeah.
and I'm just curious to
don't.
see, because what Rachel said, like 15 is quite a lot of people as it is, but I don't know.
It's also, I would think it would add cost if we bring them in. But anyway, Ms. Harder.
I wouldn't be able to comment with any sort of expertise in terms of what advisory groups have looked like in the past. I know the Prime Minister has an advisory group with youth right now. He chose 15 people. I don't know if there's a science behind that. My background in sociology would actually tell me the max is 8 in order to hear voices, but...
All right, seeing no more debate except for Dr. Carey.
Thank you very much. And with the NDP, with my understanding, well, I'll let you hear from Chuck there, that my understanding is with some of these advisory boards too, there's sometimes votes. So an odd number would be better. So, I don't know, what if we said 19? So we could break a vote. We don't want to have them stuck in a tie.
Are you moving a sub-amendment?
I would say that's a friendly sub-amendment if my colleague was there.
I just want to point out, though, that it's up to, and so we would hope that it was an odd number if there was a vote, but this won't assure in any way that this will be an odd or even number. And I think the important part here is looking at the depth and breadth of the issue. What's going to happen in different parts of Canada is going to have a big impact. What is happening in different sizes and what is happening on different levels of dementia. Making sure that there's a big enough table to make sure that those voices are heard. I think 20 is more representative. So I'll continue to encourage us to explore having 20 at the table.
Hearing any more debate, Mr. Ayoub.
Oui, je vais le dire en français.
I'll say this in French. If you would like to put on your earpieces. We are improving a bill, and I want us to have expertise, but if someone has specific expertise on the way of leading a committee and says that it must have 19 or 20, and then there are people who have worked on a bill for months. Well, earlier, we went into the bits and pieces of sentences, and now we're coming to numbers, and look at how many of us we are around a table. We're more than 15, and I am in agreement, surprisingly, with Ms. Harder. So more than 8 people can become complicated. We have 15. And I think that that's more than enough, even if Canada is very large, and with respect to people who have worked on the bill as well, who worked weeks and months on this and who certainly looked at the number, and I don't think that there's a science that supports 15 or 20. I understand your intention and I sympathize with it. I don't want to exclude anyone, but it needs to be efficient. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I was just going to point out, it's not like a sword I'm going to die on or anything like that, but around the table we have like 11 members, I think, right? And I think we do a pretty good job. But I don't want to be exclusive on it. And my understanding is some of these boards, if you have up to 15 members, I can almost guarantee you they will have 15 members. So my idea was just make it a little easier on them on a voting thing. We come to contentious issues. We don't always agree with the government, but we do understand that there's a number of votes that gets things passed so the work gets done. That's why I recommended an odd number. And I was hoping it would be accepted as a friendly amendment, because government, if you give them 15, they're going to do 15. You give them 25, they're going to do 25. And at the end of the day, we do pretty good with 11 around the table. 19 sounded like a good compromise to me, but.
Oh, let's bring Ms. Blaney.
Got to do my job. So
Absolutely.
I just want to point out that we have 20 is more. I think it's important because we look at the provinces and territories. So right now with the number that we have, we're giving one per province and territory, and then a couple will have more than one. So when I look at the realities of most of our provinces and territories, we usually have a very large urban center, and then we have a more rural and remote surrounding area. And not having those voices here at this table, or at the table that we're proposing, could bring significant challenges. So I just, again, if it's 19 or 20, I think we really need to look at fair representation and making sure those voices are here and that they are heard.
Mr. Carney.
Let's not be hung on 19 or 20. Let's make it 21 and move on.
Is that a
That will solve
sub-amendment
all
to the
the problem.
sub-amendment? No, we have on the table, we have a sub-amendment for 19, we have an amendment for 20, and then we have the bill. So I want to bring it to a vote. Now, all those in favor of the sub-amendment to change it from 15 to 19, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion defeated. Okay, now we're going to go to the amendment. The amendment from taking it from 15 members to 20 members. All those in favor of going? Yes, Mr. Weber.
Can we have some discussion on that particular motion then? Or do we feel we've talked enough about it?
Have we done the amendment, or can we still have a debate on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
you're out.
Well, I'll just bring back what I brought back earlier in our discussion, that the two Robs, honorable members who put this bill together, they chose 15. I'm almost certain they've discussed this and chose this particular number, and so I have faith in both of these individuals, and I would not support this change to 20 or whatever the number is. So.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment to go from 15 to 20 members on the, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion defeated. Okay, so all those in favor of Clause 4? Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, you have other amendments. Yes.
Thank you so much. I want to come back to the no remuneration. I just think that should be removed. So that is number 5. So it's, yeah. So we had a conversation earlier about the no remuneration. I have concerns about that. I've spoken about them already, so I won't repeat them, but I would like to strike that from the bill.
Is there any debate on that proposed amendment? Mr. Oliver.
Was your concern about compensating for travel and expenses, or did you actually want to see remuneration?
I want the option for remuneration to be available if it's to bring somebody who has multiple challenges or concerns. If you look at the testimony that we had last week, we heard very clearly about the financial hardship that some of our caregivers are experiencing across this country. And I think that just blocking that completely could bring some serious concerns to people being able to attend.
Yeah. And I did hear Mr. Oliphant say he was referencing association members and people that are doing it professionally, but I had caregivers, I had the same worry and patients.
You're good?
Yes, I'm good.
No.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good with the microphone.
Oh, you're good.
You're fast. You're too fast. No, I want to say that again, the bill has passed like that. First reading, two reading, second reading, third reading, and it comes here, and now we are changing quite a lot. That clause is very sensitive, I think, and the meaning of that clause. We had a good explanation from Rob, and I think we should remain it like it is right now, from my perspective.
Just to actually raise a good issue. I've just advised if we move this, it will make a problem for the bill at report stage because then it involves money possibly, and it may not go. So now I'm looking at the clock, and we have 7 minutes of regular time, and if we go overboard, all of this work is for nothing. So we should try to finish it up, I think, in the next 7 minutes. So I'm going to call for a vote on that amendment to remove for, the no remuneration clause. So all those in favor.
Sorry, point of order.
Yeah.
You can't call the question until everyone who's on the paper to speak has spoken to the bill.
I'm so sorry. Ms. Harder.
I have nothing to say.
Perfect. Thank you. The chair appreciates your comments. All right, now I'm going to call the vote on the no remuneration clause. All those in favor of removing the clause? All those opposed? All right, motion defeated. Now, I'm going to, are we prepared to? I think she has another. Oh, yes, you have another. No.
It's, again, I just wanted to talk about number 6 here, which is the meetings. And right now it's held twice annually, and I would like to see that increased. I didn't get the change in number. I would like to see it go to 4 meetings. And the hope is that if we have a group of 15, then we can see people coming together and hearing those different voices from across the country. That's so important.
Any debate on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment to increase the meetings to 4 from 2? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion defeated. So now, does clause 4 carry? All those in favor of the amended clause? All those opposed? Motion or clause carries. Now we're going to go to clause 5, review and report. Does clause 5 carry? All those in favor of clause 5? All those opposed? Motion carried. So now we go back to the short title, do we? Does the short title carry? All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, short title carries. And then the preamble, does the preamble carry? Mr. Oliver.
So the second paragraph, line 6, I guess, whereas it's narrowed down to Alzheimer's disease again. So I wonder if we could add, whereas Alzheimer's disease and other dementias erode an individual's independence and eventually causes death, and just broaden it for those other groups and other people.
What line is it we're talking about?
So it's line 6, I think. It's the second whereas.
Oh, yeah, whereas
Alzheimer's disease.
And then in line 24, it does include Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So for consistency, it would be right to put in dementia in there as well. So.
Whereas Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia erode an individual's independence and eventually causes death.
Any debate on the proposed amendment? All in favor of the proposed amendment? All opposed? Motion carried. All right. Does that finish the bill?
No, we have to agree on the preamble.
We have to amend the preamble.
No, to adopt it.
We have to adopt the preamble. Sorry. Yes. All in favor of adopting the preamble? All opposed? Motion carried. Now are we done?
There's the title.
Oh, the title, the title. The title, the short title, the title.
We did the short title.
We did the short title. So the title is An Act Respecting a National Strategy for Alzheimer's Disease and Other Dementias? Is that all in favor of the proper title, full title? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Still not done.
So,
Shall the bill as amended carry? All in favor? All opposed? All right. Thanks very much, everybody. No. Two more motions. Shall the chair report the bill as amended to the House? Carried. Shall the committee order a reprint of the bill as amended for the use of the House at report stage? All in favor? Now can I say we're done? Done. Thanks very much, because I do think we made it better.